Okay, thank you so much for coming along to my talk. I'm really humbled that you've all come along, and I hope this is useful. So my name's Alex Johansson. I'm a games developer from Sheffield, and I've been doing games development for about a decade now. But there's always been a through line as part of that of of immersive experiences. So doing things with what are known as alternative controllers, which is things like a Muppet boxing controller previously, where you're physically punching each other with physical Muppets. I've kind of toured those around the world. I love teaching people and kind of showing people like how to engage with technology, which isn't intimidating or kind of terrifying. And I do approachable design, which is like finding ways to make tech less intimidating to people. And most recently, I've been running workshops with young people with disabilities, and this year I'm going to be kind of doing workshops for people with dementia and designing experiences for them. So, quick preface, this is something that doesn't come up enough in tech, but when people do talks in tech, they tend to not preface that my experiences are my own. There's been a lot that I can't cover in a 20-minute talk that has informed and changed the path that I've taken through games. Take all my advice with a pinch of salt. A good point of reference if you're ever making a big career change, based on someone's advice, is to get at least 2 other people's advice before committing to it. I'm not immune to bad takes. Having said that, so my kind of big thing I want to kind of get across today is that immersion does not equal tech. I think it's possible to use tech in a way that isn't intimidating, both for you as a creative, but then also for the public, because there are so many people out there still who haven't had the opportunity to engage in tech in ways that are approachable. These are just some of the kind of projects that I've done previously. So this is the Muppet boxing one I was telling you about before, where you're physically punching each other. This is a South Korean naval officer operating a Morse code game that I built previously. And this was a games controller I built kind of before everything kicked off about vaccinating people with a little syringe into a body in the kind of style of operation. But all of those have used the same hardware. This little chip called the Makey, which is really easy, just literally plug it and play. And I also run workshops, so these people are using that piece of hardware to build controllers that resonate with them. And the thing that's great is that people that aren't tech literate tend to come up with really interesting ways of engaging with tech. Like this lady with a pink shawl here, she came up with a scratch card controller where you were dragging a coin backwards and forwards to control a racing game, and I've never seen someone build something like that before. And the other side of that is that tech can really be an obstacle and a distraction in if you're hyper-fixating on it, and it can just devour time and money. Speaking of, let's talk about the metaverse. So this was I don't know if you know anything about it, but this was something that happened a couple of years ago where Mark here blew a ton of money trying to make society-changing tech, but he, with his VR headsets and wanted society to become kind of Ready Player One style. But he didn't engage society, he didn't reach out to communities or audiences, and he focused on the tech rather than how it was actually going to engage with society. And the other thing is that he focused on tech literate people rather than trying to engage the public. And for the most part, just out of pure curiosity, out in the room, how many people have used a VR headset? That's even for people interested in tech, for this to still be half the room that haven't used it, 10 years on is just bonkers. They just can't seem to shift the needle. This is how much money they've blown so far, and it's just getting worse. And it's just, this is where they expected VR to be, virtual reality, and this is where it is. So Yeah, like, it's reassuring, I find, that these companies with billions and billions and billions of dollars just can't sell people on virtual reality. By contrast, let's talk about theatre. So, this is like, theatre's been around for thousands of years. There's all sorts of like tips and tricks that they've adopted over the years for like immersion. There's been a lot of it, kind of integrating it in the last few years, but there's stuff that they've done, for literally millennium that, it's just really effective. There was I saw a show in Berlin recently where like they covered the entire stage with flowers, and over the course of the performance, like the scent released over the show. And for me, like having there was other stuff like projection mapping and motion detection flair, but like the flowers, releasing on stage could have been done 500 years ago, and I just think that's just like really powerful as like a kind of a traditional means of immersing people, and gets a lot less focus than it should. So let's talk about Plug and Play. So this was the festival that me and my good friend David at the back of the room worked on late last year. We were basically handed a brief from Rotherham Council, which was to basically come up with a bunch of games installations and interactive experiences for the town of Rotherham. And I think it was 8 experiences we had to build, and we had 2 months, which was quite intimidating as an experience. I've got this background with like designing games and creating stuff and fabricating things. David is incredibly good at production, also has like a lot of experience with fabrication as well, and is just a good egg. So I immediately went to David and was like, can you please help me deliver this project? And the key thing that we took from the start was that we weren't going to target this at gamers. Like, we wanted to engage a wider public and a wider audience and try and reach new people and get them to engage with games. So the first game that we came up with was one called Frog Tipping, which was just basically purely analog, like no digital moving parts. It was giant magnetic fishing, where you had pieces of litter that were kind of scattered in this, on these gym mats here, and the kids had these laser cut fishing rods that they were using to kind of collect all of the litter. And basically, like, it was to be hosted in a church, and the original pitch was to basically have the kids jumping between the pews and stuff, but that just wasn't going to work. So instead we built the pews into the design of the game, and had it that the kids were like sitting on the benches and kind of pulling litter from the river. And we also had them jumping on lily pads, which were like little rubber mats, but we kept it really simple. And, because we were hosting it in a church, we spoke to, we spoke to them and like, would kind of adapted it to the space. We didn't just plonk something in there. And it went really well. Like, it took a lot of effort, but, I had to do a lot of painting and assembling and producing stuff for it. But to build this, it only cost a couple of £100, which was by far the cheapest thing that we built. It looked beautiful in the space, and we integrated it into the setting. We were able to borrow gym mats from the local school, and we did tests with them in advance. And it didn't break. I think this was the extent to which it broke. Like, one of the rods, like something came off of it. But we just got so many positive things from it. We got like kids being enthusiastic to be in a church, working together to clear litter from a river together. It's like, how many tick boxes do you want to tick in one go? It was great. We literally had a queue of kids to like come and play this game. So we were really chuffed with that. So let's talk about Radiant Vines. That is what I've got at the back. This is a very kind of sharp contrast to this first project in that it was basically all tech. Like, you can see the guts of this thing. Like, all of this stuff was built custom. And this is basically like a light installation where you get your watering can and you tip it over, and that illuminates the vines on the back wall. So you can see as you tip this little thing here, it lights up. And our kind of aim with this was to install it on these big columns in the market of the town and have this thing be a kind of big spectacle. But there was just so many moving parts, and to make it kind of work with the public, it just soaked up so much time. And obviously with the fact that you can see that we've got it here, it did come together. But we did have technical hitches, like in the end we wanted to install it on these columns, but we just ran out of time. So instead we installed it in the gazebo, which was like the first point that people came to the event to engage with the experience. And the watering can was really approachable. People could figure it out because you just had to tilt it to be able to make it work. We had kids as young as like 3 or 4 experience it. And yeah, once we got past those initial technical hitches, we were able to really, we were really able to give people a positive first experience of the festival, which is really important because, like, again, if you're trying to engage people that aren't familiar with tech, just giving them that nudge to feel comfortable is really, really important. And then finally, Runnabies. This was like a kind of a fusion of the two, that it had the digital element, but it had a really strong physical element to it as well. So, basically this venue that we had amazing venues for the festival. Like, there was so many incredible spaces that Rotherham were just like, yeah, have them, just do what you want with them. And this one was like an industrial unit, probably about the same size of this space, but a square. And it was just a shell, like there was nothing in there. So you can see the diagram of it here, just big grey square. How do we make that fun? And the main thing that we wanted as a focal point was this kind of board here, which is this thing called a Vesta board, which is like a kind of departure board style flipboard. And like for the most part, these displays are hosted in things like, cannabis distributors in LA and like coffee shops in London and just places that people don't go. So we wanted to take it to an industrial unit in Rotherham, and we did. We got it there, and we built it in a way, we built the installation in a way that like was actually approachable, in that you can see here that like we displayed like little flowers in mosaic on there, and then we got kids to recreate them using ball pool balls in these like wooden frames. And we tested it in schools. You can see like the little setup we had here that we kind of mocked it up with. The kids really enjoyed it. The important bit though is that we didn't rely on the Vesta board to work. We built a version of it on the computer that like using coding as a backup, and then we had a backup plan for that we were just going to run it in PowerPoint if that broke as well. So we had contingencies in place. And yeah, like it's just really, really important to not have those points of failure, because sure enough, the Vesta board had problems on the day, and we had to kind of, we thankfully had made a backup for that. And because of things that went wrong with the Vesta board, Radiant Vines got delayed in its installation. So, but we wouldn't have got to that point if we'd not had the spare, basically. The space itself, when we were done, it felt really cold and dead. And a real simple addition that we added was we put folk music on, and it kind of just brought the space to life. We added a little bit of lighting, and kind of the kids had made like little flowers out of like paper and card and things like that. And they'd, it just added a little bit of extra joy to the space. We also had these giant foam mats on the floor, and the kind of kids had to run around in a circuit for. We also had some local people in these terrifying bee suits come and engage with it as well. So overall, we managed to kind of turn this from this grey box space into this kind of place of joy. And we also had like a pretty broad range of people engage with it. We had like grandparents and grandkids like running around. You know, we had a couple of people in you know, in wheelchairs that were able to kind of operate the kind of, they were kind of filling in the ball pool balls at the frames. The way that the game works, I should probably say, is that you run around the track and you're placing ball pool balls in the slots based on like the flower that's being displayed on the board. And yeah, for the most part, it went really well. And yeah, I'm just so glad that we got to bring this project to that space. So, in terms of where to start with this stuff, it's like this project went really well, but we kind of went. I've kind of gone all in on trying to do this because like the games industry is a boring, stagnant place, and I don't want to work there anymore. And there are billions of people that have just not been engaged with games and interaction, and I would much rather design experiences for literally anyone else at this point. My kind of policy is that gamers are welcome to enjoy my experiences, but they're not my prime audience anymore. And the good news is that you don't have to alienate gamers as much as I may have done by that statement. You can kind of experiment with this stuff on a small scale first. You don't have to go all in. You can just start by just adding little bits of interactivity and approachability to your projects. The key one you can do, if you're doing anything with computers, is to ditch the keyboard and gamepad. They are really alienating interfaces for engaging with games. Like the closest parallel to a games controller is like a flight input, like operating a plane, which nobody knows how to operate. So use pieces of hardware like the Makey. That's like a really lovely piece of hardware that's very easy to get started with. That's like this here. And focus on the like tangible, familiar inputs. That's a really good place to start with. And the crucial thing is to try and answer this question, which is like, how can you reach one new person with the experiences you design? That's it. Thank you so much.